Good evening, everyone. Thank you. It's good to be back. And my name is Bobby Lee. I'm currently the founder and CEO of a company called Ballet. We make cryptocurrency wallets. And so my background, Stanford. Oh, I forgot to write. I'm a CEIBS Gamba class of 2012. So I've been in this classroom, many years ago, and basically grew up abroad, United States, Silicon Valley, Stanford, Yahoo. Came to China about 15 years ago, worked at EMC in Yangpu, worked at SMG Best TV, Shanghai Wenguang, Baisitong, worked at Walmart's e-commerce division, and then I started a company called BTC China, the very first exchange in China. I sold that company 3 years ago, and then started my current company, Ballet, 2 years ago. So the talk is about gold, US dollar, and Bitcoin. And people always care about Bitcoin's spectacular bull market, okay? So for Bitcoin, what I found useful is to talk about ownership, because it turns out people always ask me, what's the big deal with Bitcoin? And what I tell people is it actually has to do with ownership. And ownership is a topic that most people don't think about, correct? You don't think about it in your daily work. You don't think about it at school. You don't think about it at MBA programs. You don't think about it in college, high school. You just don't think about it because it's so fundamental. It's like breathing and eating. You don't think about it. But what is ownership? So before we get to that answer, I want to tie in a related topic. What is personal identity? This is just a photo of a Chinese national ID card. So now, quick survey. Does ownership and personal identity have anything to do with each other? Yes? Who thinks it does? Not many people. Oh no, just a few, 3 or 4 or 5. Okay. Well, the majority of you don't think it has anything to do with each other. Well, turns out you haven't thought hard about this topic. It turns out it does. Okay. And I'm gonna show you. In about 4 or 5 slides, you'll get it. And then I'm going to do a quick survey and see if you understand this. So if you look at asset classes, real estate, stocks, cars you own, if you own airplanes, boats, bank accounts, credit cards, all of these are actually tied to ownership, to identity. Meaning when you own these asset classes, it's always through title and registration, right? Does that make sense? Meaning you own it in your name. If you invest in a company, they say, how would you like to invest as? The name of you and your spouse? Is the name of a corporation, LLC, a registered company name? If you buy stocks, is it in your name or is it in your children's name? If you buy the home, is it in your name or your wife's name or your husband's name? People in China even get divorced so they could buy 2 homes, right? So ownership actually has a lot to do with how you own something, okay? There are examples of, for example, if I give you a key to my house, just because you have the key to my house, it doesn't mean you own it. If I give you my car keys, just because you have the key to my car doesn't mean you own it, right? So in the end, ownership is actually tied to identity. Does that make sense? And this is not just for large asset classes, even for smaller things like airline tickets, train tickets. If you travel in China, who's taking a train in China, right? Now, I think as of 1 or 2 years ago, train tickets are now tied to identity, tied to your ID. You can go to the train station. You don't even need to bring a train ticket. You just swipe your ID card and you can go on the train. Same with airline. It used to be when I grew up, right? I'm sure you too, right? When you go to the airport, you have to bring your airline ticket. It looks like this, right? And they check on it, right? And then they issue a boarding pass. So these days, it's not like that anymore. Okay, so that's a key insight. Okay, it's something that's been true all our lives, but we just don't think about it. Ownership is tied to identity for the vast majority of the asset classes. In fact, finance is all about identity. Think about In China, we have WeChat Pay, Alipay, bank accounts, credit card accounts, loans, mortgages. They're all tied to your identity. Is that right? Now you get it, right? So do you guys understand now? Is the light bulb going off? That's why identity and ownership are essentially two sides of the same coin, as they say. Okay? Now, what about physical possession? So physical possession is the concept of you holding something, me holding the microphone, me holding this bottle of water, right? So what about physical possession? Well, it turns out in the past, in our past human, in history, so in the past, meaning hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, yeah, there's no seats in the front. Very popular lecture. In the past, it turns out ownership was by physical possession. Okay, whether it's gold bars, seashells and other physical jewelry. If you have some goats, some cows, some chickens, it's whoever has it, right? The chicken I don't know if you've seen live chicken running around. Whoever's raising the chicken, that's why they put a fence around it. Those are my chicken. Those are my ducks, right? Some people would steal their neighbor's chicken, stuff like that, right? But the chicken doesn't know who owns it. There's no title. There's no registration with a local village. Oh, this chicken belongs to Mr. Lee. This chicken belongs to Mr. Zhou. Does that make sense? Okay. So what is the problem? So let's get to the heart of it. Okay. So far, I haven't talked about Bitcoin, but this basic foundation is important for the conversation about Bitcoin. So what's the problem? Well, the problem is control. So here's a quiz. Does the word control, you all understand this word control. Does the concept of control have anything to do with ownership and identity? Who thinks they have an idea? Raise your hand. Does the concept of control have anything to do with the concept of ownership and identity? We just established that ownership and identity are related, correct? How about control? Yes or no? Yes? You want to take a guess? Yeah, go ahead.
I think control is the combination of ownership and identity.
The combination of ownership and identity. Yeah, that's a good way to start. So let me share more about this, okay? So turns out they have control. They being, the big brother, government, and so on. What I mean by that is when ownership is tied to your identity, if you have any type of assets you own that's registered in your name, it turns out, by definition, they have control. I want you to think about this. What's the difference between what's the difference between an airline ticket, train ticket, airline ticket, with a movie ticket? What's the difference? Well, the difference is that with an airline ticket or a train ticket, if I go to their airport train station, they have control whether or not to let me onto the plane and train. They might have a blacklist. They might have a terrorist list. They might have a XYZ reason to not let me on. Whereas with a movie ticket, because movie tickets so far are anonymous, there's no name tied to it, I have the freedom to go, or I can say, oh, I'm busy tonight. Why don't I give these movie tickets to my friend here? He and his girlfriend and his wife can go. Just one girlfriend or wife, not both. Okay, so you see what I'm trying to say about control, okay? So if something is tied to your name, someone else has control. Who here in Shanghai or China has real estate? Anyone own real estate? A few people. Well, you've heard of these stories. In China, in Shanghai, there are limits on who can buy real estate. 限购, right? You can buy and who can sell. That's why I made a joke about couples getting divorced so they can buy 2 homes. Otherwise, as a married couple, you can only buy 1. So these are very real limitations. Each person can only buy 1. So I purchased my home, I cannot buy another one. Right? If I want to upgrade to a new home, I don't know what to do because I can't sell this one and buy the new one and move in, right? I can't even buy another one and sell it. So it's a very real issue. Stocks. Who here trades stocks? There's limits, daily limits. what is it called? When the stock gaps up or gaps down, they stop the trading, right? In times of emergency, this is not, I mean, this is everywhere in the world. After 9/11, the US stock market closed and they wouldn't allow you to sell. Even if you were willing to sell at a really low price, they wouldn't let you. Okay, so the point is, anytime something is owned by name, by your identity, someone else has control. And that's a very fundamental piece of knowledge that you should be aware of. Okay, there's nothing good or bad about it. It's just what it is, okay? All right, here's an example. When you have money in a bank, it's tied to your name. Your bank account is in your name. So it turns out they have control of your money. That's why when you go to an ATM to get cash, they limit how much you can get out per day. Even if you don't go to the ATM, you go to the bank teller window, they also limit how much cash you can withdraw, how much cash you can deposit, how much transfers you can make on a per day basis. Sometimes when you make a transfer on an ATM, there's a 24-hour delay. All these things they can control. Do you guys follow me? Okay, this is an example in Cyprus. This is 8 years ago in 2013. Cyprus, a small country in Europe, they had a budget deficit, and then they decided to do to make money, to make the budget, to make the national whatever money work. They had to take a haircut and take people's money in their own bank accounts. So they said anyone who has more than 100,000 euros in the bank account will get a haircut and get a discount, meaning you get 20% lopped off. And then everyone lined up at ATMs to go get their money because they're afraid if my money is in the bank might take my money away and charge fees, right? So this is a real issue. So identity ownership. So here's the sentence. Anytime you have identity-based ownership, it's really under third-party control. That's the key takeaway, okay? So do you guys now get it? Any questions about this? Identity-based ownership means third-party control. Is it a new concept to you guys? Yeah? No? First time you thought of it? Make sense? It's an insight, right? It's a new insight. You don't think about this, right? So this is the basis of Bitcoin, okay? All right. What about cash? Is cash under your name? Physical cash. So is there third-party control? So the cash you have in your hand, the US dollars or euros, is not under third-party control. It's under your physical control. However, with money, physical control does not equal value control, right? The purpose you have the cash, the US dollars or euro, is you care about the value. You don't care about the pieces of paper, right? You care about the value of it, what it can buy. So it turns out in history, you have lots of examples of countries where the value of the paper currency plummets through the notion of inflation and hyperinflation. We have examples like the Deutschmark through the World Wars, one in World War II. You have examples of Zimbabwe dollars in the 1990s and 2000s. You have the example of the Venezuela bolivar. If you've been there, hyperinflation. And even in India, they canceled the banknotes, the 500 and 1,000 rupee. They canceled overnight, right? This is Prime Minister Modi. No advance notice whatsoever. So if you have a stash of 1,000 rupee, the next thing you know, it's worthless. Okay, so it's terrible. It's even happened in England. Anyone from England? Okay, so the British pound, the $5 British pound used to be paper-based and became polymer. The new notes are polymer-based, meaning the plastic. They canceled the old one. So if you have the old paper 5-pound notes, it's worthless. You have to go to a central bank to exchange it. Okay, so even advanced countries can do that. Okay, not just countries at war. Okay, so now we're going to talk about, is there a new ownership model? So far we've looked at two ownership models. We've looked at the physical ownership model and the identity ownership model. And is there a new model? And the answer is yes. And of course, you guessed it. It's about Bitcoin. Okay, so the future is here. Okay, so the reason Bitcoin is important in this world, the reason you came to this lecture to this talk is to learn about Bitcoin and what's the big deal. Well, what I tell you, and I'm going to talk about it in my book, what I'm going to tell you is the big deal about Bitcoin, it's a brand new ownership model. And you're not going to hear about this in the press. On CNBC, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, they're not going to talk about it because most of them don't get it. They don't understand it. It took me many, many years. I've been in Bitcoin for 10 years now. This is my 10-year anniversary. It took me about 6.5 years for me to understand, oh my gosh, no wonder Bitcoin is a new ownership model. Does that make sense? About 3-4 years ago, I gave a TED Talk here in Shanghai, TEDx, a smaller version of TED Talk, at Fuxing Lu TEDx. And that's when I gave my first speech about Bitcoin being a new ownership model. Okay, this is the big deal. Okay, if there's one thing you take away, why is Bitcoin special? Why is it worth so much money? Why does it keep going up? Because fundamentally, it is a brand new ownership model that's different from physical possession and different from titled ownership, titled asset class. Okay, so in our digital world today, we have the internet for 20 years, 30 years now. What we need is digital assets, and that's what Bitcoin gives us. Okay, and for the first time, instead of trusting a central bank like the US Federal Reserve, the Bank of England, the Reserve Bank of India, we can now trust mathematics, because what underpins Bitcoin is a branch of mathematics called cryptography. You've heard of cryptography. Whenever you type in a password at a website, whenever you type in a username password on your phone, there's cryptography behind the scenes. The computer, the phone is using the computer chip, the software, the algorithms to do calculations for cryptography. When you make a phone call on your SIM card on your phone, when you send an email, SSL websites, all of that is cryptography, okay? So that's all based on mathematics. So we're saying we can trust mathematics because as far as I'm concerned, all these great countries will last maybe hundreds of years, but mathematics will last an eternity, right? I just don't know whether the United States or the European Union will be around when my great-great-grandchildren grow up. However, I know that when my great-great-great-grandchildren grow up, 1 + 1 will still be 2. Does that make sense? It's forever, right? Mathematics is forever. So don't get fooled. They say diamond is forever. Diamond's not forever. Mathematics is forever. Okay, so we have ownership by information. This is the third kind of ownership. Now we're saying ownership by information. What we're referring to here is the concept of private keys, okay? So I'll talk about that in a little bit later. So for the first time, Bitcoin is real freedom of money, it's real ownership, okay? This is the third kind of ownership, what I call the freedom of money ownership. And I will talk more about that in the next few slides. All right, we've had this freedom since 2009. That's when Bitcoin was invented. Bitcoin just turned 12 years old last week, okay, about 10 days ago. And we've had freedom, true freedom of money since then, okay? It's a new digital asset and represents freedom of money. Here are some stats. Some of you may know this. Bitcoin, for the first time, is a digital asset that is limited in quantity. The world will only have at most 21 million units of Bitcoin. It will always be like that. Okay, that's a very special thing. Does anyone have a question about this? Sometimes there's a misunderstanding about this, but I assure you, I've been studying Bitcoin for 10 years now. I assure you that is factually correct. Bitcoin will only ever have 21 million, even for my great-great-great-great-grandchildren. When they grow up, Bitcoin will still be 21 million. The reason is it uses a system called the blockchain and a global network called a peer-to-peer network. It's a decentralized network. And that network runs a piece of software where by consensus, everyone agrees 21 million. Okay, so if you, for example, want to create a new Bitcoin that has 30 million Bitcoins, the rest of the world is running on the Bitcoin that has 21 million. You are the only one that says Bitcoin has 30 million. the rest of the world will reject you. Does that make sense? So it's all about compatibility. Okay, it's like saying the English language alphabet has 26 characters. If you say, oh, we need a 27th character, well, I'm sorry, the rest of the world thinks it's 26, so you're going to be rejected. Does that make sense? Same like Arabic numerals, 0 through 9, that's 10 numerals, right? Well, there's only 10, sorry, that's how the world is. You're not going to get your number 11 numeral. You're just not going to get it, sorry, okay? So it's by a mutual standard agreed by the whole world, it's 21, okay? You have a question, sir?
So what if the whole world agrees that we want 30 million Bitcoins?
Oh, good. So people say that. What if the whole world agrees to 30 million? Well, if the whole world agrees to 30 million, then that's fine. But guess what? Me and my Bitcoin buddies, we're going to still use the old Bitcoin 21 million. So let me ask you, in that world where you have a Bitcoin with 30 million and I have Bitcoin with 21 million, from economical perspective, which Bitcoin do you think is going to be more valuable? Right? Because there will be some people, all it takes is 2 people to hold on and not agree to 30 million. So they're going to have a private network of 21 million Bitcoin, and you're going to have the network of 30 million. Chances are my network of 21 million will be more valuable than your network of 30 million because of momentum, standards, and so on and so forth. People will think you're cheating by creating 9 more million Bitcoins. Right? There's no need to. Anyways, I'll explain that a little bit more, okay? Any other questions about this? Yes, sir. You have to press the button, yeah.
You have different currencies though, yeah? So there's other cryptocurrencies and Ethereum and
yes,
others,
that's right.
So I could start another one, right?
You could. So you could start another currency. So you're absolutely right. You could start another one. You can call it heavy coin, or you could call it light coin. You can call it Ethereum. You can call it Ethereum Classic. And there's no end to that. Just like on this computer, some of you don't see this. There's a keyboard. There's about 85 keys on this keyboard. It's laid out a certain way, QWERTY. Any French people here? French people here? Yes, yes. So you know in France, the classic keyboard is actually AZERTY. Yeah, right? Right, you remember that? Yeah, yeah. But so it turns out you can lay out the keyboards in any combination you want. But why is it my keyboard QWERTY? Why is it on your mobile phone, Samsung, Huawei, iPhone, also QWERTY keyboard? Why is a keyboard on your car, your in-car display, when you type in the address, navigation, it's also QWERTY? Why is the PC keyboard from 1980, IBM PC, QWERTY? Because you just became a standard. It's not the most efficient keyboard. It's not the best, but it became a standard. The French used to have a different standard called AZERTY. Different European countries have different layout. But over time, I'm sad to tell you that, I think you know, right? The keyboard you use, do you still use the AZERTY keyboard? Or yeah. There's another layout called Dvorak keyboard layout. It's supposed to be better, but no one uses it. Okay, so my point is you can create a new computer. You can create your own computer called the banana computer, special layout. A, B, C, D in order. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way to Z. It sounds intuitive. You're like, that's easier. Banana computer, A through Z. Very easy for children to learn. But I don't think it's going to be very popular because you're going against the flow, against the standard. That's why when people launch these new coins, you know, we call them shit coins. Okay. So you may not have heard of that word, okay? So they're really crappy coins. We call them altcoins, alternative coins. So you can always create these other coins. But think about the gold standard. There's gold, there's silver, there's bronze, or there's platinum, rhodium, but there's steel, stainless steel, there's, you know, copper, titanium, all the other things like aluminum. It's just no longer precious metals. You can always create your new metal alloy. You can create infinite number of metal alloys, nickel, zinc. You could mix them up, you know, 5% zinc, 50% nickel, 25% aluminum. You can make your new alloys, but in the end, it's just a mess. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, let's continue. So based on information and math, I explained this to you, right? It's based on information and math and cryptography. In Bitcoin, there's notion of a private key, which I'll explain to you in a little bit. All right, borderless and global. So this is something people don't understand. Bitcoin, the network, was designed to be borderless and global. Okay, so there's absolutely no limitations on language, on where you are, what country you live in, what citizenship, what gender, what sex you are, what gender you are, what your sexual orientation, single, married, it doesn't matter. What age you are, it doesn't matter. Anyone can use it. Everyone can use it. Even your dogs and cats can have Bitcoin. All right, not identity based. That's a key thing. Bitcoin is not tied to your identity. Why? Because it was designed not to be. Because if it's tied to your identity, there has to be a third party in charge. Make sense? People sometimes tell me, they're like, "Oh, I don't want to use Bitcoin because it's anonymous." Well, I tell them, think about this. It's actually a good thing it's anonymous, because if it's anonymous, you have control over it. If you have to register your name to some central authority in order to own your Bitcoin, you may feel safe, but the reality is that central authority will always have control over you. Does that make sense? That's why Bitcoin was invented and created as an alternative. You're not forced to use it. It's giving you a different choice. So far in the last 12 years, the market, the people on this planet Earth, have chosen more and more so to use Bitcoin. Today, there's about $700 billion of assets in Bitcoin, meaning the whole worth of Bitcoin is worth $700 billion. It used to just be $7 million. From 7 million to 70 million to 700 million to 7 billion, 70 billion, now it's 700 billion. One day it'll reach 1 trillion and it'll reach 5 trillion, 10 trillion, and so on and so forth, okay? All right, lastly, there's no third-party control, and that's tied, okay? Meaning if it's not identity-based, there's no third-party control, and vice versa, okay? And it's decentralized and all that. Okay, so let's talk about information as money. So I can show you information. This is information. It's like ones and zeros, what they call Morse code. In the old days, I can only show you information, but there's no value transfer. But with Bitcoin, through the notion of private keys, information is now money. Maybe maybe all the ones and zeros is a binary representation of a Bitcoin account with $100 in it. So in theory, I can just give you money by ones and zeros. Does that make sense? That's what it means, okay? So for the first time, we now have an asset class that's based on information. Okay, Bitcoin is money in the cloud, okay? It's maintained in the cloud through something called blockchain. It's the ultimate hard currency. Have any of you grown up or lived in what we call a developing country or third world nation? Anyone? Yes? Okay. So when you were a kid, you remember usually third world countries, developing nations, their currency is weak. And maybe you and your parents would think about how to hold money in the US dollar, in euros, or maybe not euros, Swiss franc, right? The French franc, the British pound, Hong Kong dollars, Japanese yen, the major currencies. So that's a notion of hard currency. Hard currency is not physically hard, but it's very strong. It's as in, it's not going to go down in value, unlike the Zimbabwe dollar, unlike these other hyperinflation currencies, right? Okay, good. So I think, my opinion is Bitcoin is the ultimate hard currency. Okay, even better than the US dollar, better than the euro. Bitcoin is your vote for freedom of money. So people who understand and want freedom of money, they want Bitcoin. And it's essentially a new revolutionary global asset class. It's a digital asset for a digital age. What I mean by Bitcoin as freedom of money, so I'm gonna talk about that for a little bit. So with Bitcoin, you can actually own as much Bitcoin as you want or as little. No one is there to stop you. and you can make transfers whenever you want to any other person you want with no limits, no daytime limits, no nighttime limits, no aggregate monthly limits, daily limits, and it doesn't matter who you send it to. There's no checks on who you send it to, whether it's going to bounce back. It'll always work. Does that make sense? Real story, just happened in the last 48 hours. I had a friend in Singapore who sent me money, Hong Kong dollars, to my HSBC account. My HSBC account in Hong Kong, I have to give them updated information about my income and stuff like that. So I have a special token to access it. It's really complicated. So I'm trying to return him the money. I can't do it on the HSBC website. He gave me a US bank account. I tried to use my US Wells Fargo bank account to send him money. There's a service called Zelle. You can only send $500 a day. I have to send him 7,000. It'll be like 12 days. Anyways, long story short, it's very hard for me to just give him money. It's so hard. Okay. So I don't know if any of you in your course of life, personal life or business life, how many of you have issues moving money around? China has capital controls, right? Even if you ignore the capital controls in China, you probably have trouble moving your money around. I was talking about the US and Canada, US and Hong Kong and Singapore, right? So, right, how many of you, let's see a raise of hands. How many of you have firsthand experience, know of people who have trouble with moving money around? That's a lot of hands. That's a lot of hands, okay? And for those of you who did not raise your hands, I would say either you're naive or you don't have any money, okay? So I think those are the only two reasons, okay? The more successful you get in terms of career, the more you're gonna run into this problem. The more wealthy you get in terms of your personal finances and financial freedom, financial independence, the more trouble, the more you're gonna run into this problem of money, of the money system we have today. Does that make sense? Does anyone disagree with me about that? Anyone disagree? Good. So I know there's no central bankers in the audience. All right, so the evolution of money, here's what we have. We have zero, which is, in the old days, it's called barter. When you exchange something for something else, barter. That means there's no money, okay? Or ancestors. And then after that, it was seashells and bone fragments, the first sort of kind of money. And then we have precious metals, gold and silver, okay? Precious metals. And then we have what we call fiat money. Fiat money is paper-based money that was backed by gold and silver, but then later it turned like it was not backed by gold and silver anymore. So that's fiat money. And then now we have Bitcoin, okay? So what I consider the newest form of money. Now, this is just my opinion. Recognize Bitcoin as money, which is fine. Different countries can have different things. Just like by law, not all countries recognize seashells and bones as money, which is also fine. Okay, so fiat money, how long do you think this has been around? I want someone to raise your hand and take a guess. All right, who first? You're good. How long has fiat money been around?
70 years.
70 years. How about you? How long has fiat money been around?
Paper money?
Paper money, yes.
800 years.
800 years. Okay, who else? Who raised their hand? 70 years, 800 years. Okay, last chance. Go ahead. How long has fiat money been around?
I think it's since the Song dynasty, so it's around 700 to 800 years.
800 years.
So Brad
Okay.
is correct on that.
Okay, turns out you're all sort of not exactly right. That's like saying you're all wrong. Okay, so the paper money we use today, the US dollar, even though you have seen the US dollar from before, from decades ago, hundreds of years ago, turns out the kind of paper money you have that we have today has only been around for 49 and a half years. The 50-year anniversary is coming up this August, 2021. So 50 years ago, in summer of 1971, President Nixon in the United States of America took the US dollar off of the gold standard. So before 1971, again, I was born after 1971, okay? Some of you are born after. But before 1971, the US dollar is not the same US dollar as we have today. It may look the same. You still have George Washington on it. They do this on purpose to fool us into thinking it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. Before 1971, the US dollar was equivalent to gold. It was the same thing. The US dollar was the same thing as gold because it was freely exchangeable at a fixed rate, $35, 1 ounce of gold. True story. Ask your parents. True story. And that was the history of money. So when they have gold coins, they issue paper money, but paper money was always backed by gold and silver. That's why in Britain, it was called a sterling pound. 1 pound used to be 1 pound of silver. 1 British pound used to be 1 pound of silver. True story, right? Am I right? $35 used to be 1 ounce of gold, okay? And Nixon took us off the gold standard and gold skyrocketed. That's one way of saying it. What's another way of saying it? The dollar plummeted. So in the last 100 years, the US dollar has lost 97, 98, 99% of its value compared to the dollars in 100 years ago. That's why in the US, if you travel to the US, you go to some hamburger places like McDonald's, In-N-Out, Wendy's. You may see these advertising. They say, oh, in the 1950s, cheeseburgers were 5 cents. Hamburgers were, hamburgers 5 cents, cheeseburger 10 cents. You know what I'm talking about? Very inexpensive. But today, the US dollar is literally almost worthless compared to 20, 50 years ago, okay? So the point is, the fiat money is very new, okay? It's only been 49 years. And every time, every fiat money in existence has always failed. Okay, if you go study money, every time there's a new fiat currency where they print it without limits, where it's not backed by gold and silver, it always goes to hyperinflation and always fails. Okay, as an American, I am not very confident of the US dollar, even though I'm an American, okay? All right, so why is Bitcoin valuable? Well, 2 reasons: utility and scarcity, okay? It's useful because Bitcoin, number one, it allows you to move money freely. It gives you freedom of money. So unlike regular money in the banks, Bitcoin allows you to move it however you want, whenever you want, anytime, any amounts, no limits, no restrictions. Now, some people might think, oh, that's very dangerous. You don't want to give money to terrorists. You don't want to buy drugs. You don't want people to pay for illicit goods and services with Bitcoin. That's all true, right? You don't want illegal activities. But Bitcoin's purpose in life is not about illegal activities. Does that make sense? So you have to distinguish between illegal activities and what it allows you to do, right? You can use Bitcoin for legitimate things, okay? So there's a lot of legitimate purposes for Bitcoin transactions. And the other one's scarcity. Scarcity has 21 million, okay? So if there's one, if you walk away today learning about, people ask you tomorrow or next week or next month, what's the big deal about Bitcoin? So besides that it's a new kind of ownership, you say it really comes down to 2 things. Number one is it's useful, and number 2 is it's scarce. And sadly, even Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, they don't understand this yet. So you're ahead of them, okay? Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk are 3 of my idols. I admire them. But unfortunately, even to this day, they don't understand Bitcoin very well. I haven't had the pleasure to give them a talk about Bitcoin. But I think if they were here, I think I can convince them, right? They'll ask some good questions. I think I can convince them. But they haven't had the chance, and I haven't had the chance. But you can take this away, okay? Bitcoin really is useful, and it's really scarce, okay? All right, let's continue. Now we're going to talk about some fun stuff. Bitcoin price history, okay? What do you think this chart is of? When do you think this what date and what date? When do you think this was? When it peaked? Okay, raise your hand. What year? 2020. What else? 17, 2010. Wow, you're good. This is actually 2011. Bitcoin went to an all-time high of $30. Before that, it was less than $1 for the most part. Okay? You see that? Amazing price increase. Yeah, question? I do. Not in this slide. It's not important. At this point, I can tell you how many Bitcoins. This is 2 years after Bitcoin. There was about 5 million Bitcoins in circulation, 5.5 million. Yeah, right there. Okay. That's a more complicated topic. I'll show you. I'll tell you guys. I can answer questions later. Okay. All right. So what happened is, after the peak in 2011, it took another 2 years, 1.5 years to reach the peak. The price fell down. Okay. So went from high, whoop, and then took a big dump, crash, market crash, bear market, and finally caught up to $33 in February of 2013. Okay. And then what about this? When do you think this is? 2019? 2020? Nope, it's not 2020. It's actually same year, April of 2013. So after peaked that in February, right, this is 2011, this is February 2013. For 2 months, it went up straight up to $215. Just in 2 months, okay? That's like 8x increase in price, okay? And then of course, after that same year, the price dumped again, a nice crash in the summer of 2013. And then by November, it recovered to $215. All right, what's the next chart? 2015, nope, same year, 2013. So it peaked out at $215. That was in April, okay? It reached this in November. And then within a month, by December, it went up to $1,200. This December 2013. Okay, so you see here multiple patterns of it going up, coming crashing back down, and going up a lot. Remember the first peak in 2011? It's right over here. That was $30. So $30 in 2011, it peaked at $200, and it peaked again at $1,200. Okay, so Bitcoin grows a lot, very fast when the bull market comes, okay? All right, and then we had the big bear market from 2013 all the way to 2017. It took 3 years. Huge bear market, that's a big U, like a roller coaster, okay? But it recovered by March of 2017, it recovered to $1,200. All right, look at the next chart. This is the end of 2017. It hit $20,000. Okay, so again, it peaked. The last peak was $1,200, $1,200 US. 2.5 years, 3 years of bear market, and now it went to $19,000, almost $20,000. So all the previous peaks are just like, it's nothing. I have to put a dot here, otherwise you don't even see it. You see, you can see it. There's like 2 pixels right here. You get my point? And this is huge, right? This is huge, but it's nothing yet. So if you go more, and then this is again a bear market of 3 years. Okay, 3 years later, December 2020, just last month. Okay, it finally hit $19,000 again. It did a double dip. Okay, so from 2017, 2018, 2019, no one cared about Bitcoin. Okay, for the last 2 years, no one cared about Bitcoin. That's when I started my company. I'm like, haha, I know something you guys don't know. It's going to come back. The bull market will come back. So I started my company in the deep, deep bear market. That's when I started my company, right here. Called Ballet, right? So the Bitcoin bull market is coming back. It's roaring back. It crossed $20,000. This is the bull market. And last week, it hit an all-time high of $41,000, which is more than twice that of the last previous high. Okay, what's going to happen after this? Did I hear someone say it's going to drop? It did drop. It dropped 30% in one day. It dropped 30% in one day. Okay, so if you invest in Bitcoin, you have to have a strong stomach or a big stomach like me, or a big strong stomach. Okay, if you don't, then you're going to go to the bathroom and have diarrhea. Okay, all right. So no, really, you have to have guts, have fortitude. Okay, so it drops like crazy. Okay, but you'll notice that Bitcoin just goes up like crazy. That's why all the other highs are just, small dots. Okay, even this one, I think will be nothing. Okay, so this is what I think the future price of Bitcoin, my opinion. Okay, not investment advice. Not investment advice. I'm not a qualified investment advisor. So my opinion is Bitcoin will be way up there by end of this year. Actually, my staff helped me prepare this slide. It's not even here. I think Bitcoin will be there by end of this year. Okay, you guys can take a picture. See me right there. By end of this year, that's where Bitcoin will be. Okay, remember this is $40,000. I think Bitcoin will be $250,000. Okay, maybe I'm wrong by 20%. Maybe I'm off by 20%. Maybe it's only $200,000, or maybe it's $300,000. Okay, so basically somewhere there. Okay, because look, that's 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120. Right, that's 200. So 200 is right here. 250 is right here. 300's there. Okay, so I think based on past patterns, it could get to over $250,000 by the end of this year. This year, you guys are lucky. This is January. You guys are the first big lecture I'm giving in this bull market. Okay, this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. 2x increase. It's gonna go up 5x, 10x, maybe even 20x. Okay, 20x is $400,000. 10x is $200,000. Okay, heard me here. And if it doesn't get there, I'm wrong. I'll buy you guys dinner next year. Okay. Okay. Any questions about this? Yeah.
What is your projection based on?
Bitcoin today at $40,000, $35,000 is 700 billion. You can do your own math. Today, there's about 18.5 Bitcoins, 18.5 million. Pull out a calculator. 18.5 million times $35,000 or $38,000. It's about plus or minus. Yes, do the math. 700 billion. That's less than 1 trillion. $1 trillion is a lot of money for one person. It's a lot of money for one company. But today, you actually have multi-billionaires. You actually have companies that are worth $1 trillion, right? But the US money supply went from 1 trillion to 4 trillion, 10 trillion. Now the US money supply is 20 trillion. The global stock market, the global real estate is hundreds of trillions of dollars. So if you ask in all seriousness, why do I think Bitcoin would get there? It's because Bitcoin, I think, is better than gold. Gold today, all the gold in the world is 180,000 tons of gold. Ton. Okay. In fact, gold is so heavy and so dense, the 180,000 tons of gold will actually fit inside this room, I think. It's only like 7 square meters. It's like 7-meter cube, meaning you go 7 meters, 7 meters, 7 meters. It's a 7-meter square cube. That's all the gold in the world today, in the whole world. Okay. That is $10 trillion. Gold is $1,800 an ounce. It's 10 trillion gold. So if Bitcoin gets to be twice the value of gold, what is that? 20 trillion. Let's make it 21 trillion. So do the math. 21 trillion divided by how many Bitcoins? 21 million. That is how much per Bitcoin? Calculator? $1 million. That's right. So in my opinion, not investment advice, if Bitcoin gets to twice the value of gold, Bitcoin will be $1 million. Today, it's trading at $38,000. That's 3.8% of what it should be, in my opinion. Okay? Don't blame me, I didn't say it, okay? I gave this talk in June of 2013 to my CEIBS Gamba classmates, 60 people. I said, buy Bitcoin. No one, like 2 people bought Bitcoin. I should have just given 1 Bitcoin to every student. It was $100. It was $100. That's a biggest regret. I should have just taken out $6,000 out of my pocket, just $100. Boom, 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 boom. Everyone, 1 Bitcoin. Okay. Well, anyways, it's going to be $1 million. Okay. So here's my additional thoughts on Bitcoin. I'm going to go faster so you guys can answer questions and ask questions, answer questions. Okay. Why will Bitcoin prices keep going up? Anyone curious? Because it's undervalued. It's tremendously undervalued compared to the potential. If you think Bitcoin is just limited to one country, to only buying coffee and buying food at a restaurant, then Bitcoin cannot be $20 trillion. But if you think and agree with me that Bitcoin's global, that it's true freedom of money, that's digital money with no limitations, it's useful and it's scarce, then Bitcoin can become a $20 trillion asset class. That's assuming they don't print more money. If they print more money, gold prices go up, Bitcoin prices will go up even faster. Okay, so it turns out, and by the way, many people I meet say, oh, Bitcoin is very dangerous. It's not supported by the government. It's not backed by the government. It's not endorsed by the government. Have you heard of that? Yeah. Well, you're right. They're right. Bitcoin is not. What I want to say is Bitcoin's value does not come from the endorsement, acceptance, or the regulation of governments. It's not. On purpose, it's not. Okay? Where does Bitcoin's value come from? It turns out, this is my opinion, okay? This is not a criticism of anyone or any country or any central bank, okay? It's just my opinion. Bitcoin's value comes from the inherent failures, the limitations, and the inconveniences of the competition. What's a competition? It's a fiat monetary system. Make sense? All right, that's why I think Bitcoin is valuable. That's the best way to say it. Meaning, if the fiat money system today is better, where there's no limits, where there's no inconveniences, where it's really easy for us to do things with the money, then Bitcoin just would not be that valuable. Make sense? Okay. So again, some of you raise your hands. So the people who raise their hands early, who have firsthand experience on the inconveniences, the limitations, the failures of money, you guys will be strong supporters of Bitcoin if only you had a chance to try it out. Make sense? So you know who you are. The ones who raise your hand, you should go line up and get our free wallets and buy some Bitcoin and try it out, and you'll get it. It's really hard to learn, but you have to try it out to learn. If you don't try out, if you don't, like, what's expression? You have to try it to understand it. You can't just learn it by sitting down and reading some slides. Does that make sense? Okay, so I encourage all of you to do it. That's why I started my company. We made wallets to make it easy for everyone in the world to use Bitcoin. Okay, all right. How to invest? Hold on to your dear life. Okay, HODL. It's a Bitcoin. So these are some mistakes to avoid. Okay, these are my my insights over the last 2 years. Here we go, or last 10 years rather. The top 4 mistakes. Oh, you have a question first. Go ahead, sir.
So one is about the movement of money.
What is what?
One is about the movement of the money, like it's a inefficiency, or we will say difficulties in moving money from one to another places. So I have a doubt, like there's a lot of ways, but putting it aside, how much it has to do with the many governments printing more money, especially the US dollar, for the increase in the Bitcoins?
You're talking about, sorry, you're asking about what is a movement of money? What is the?
No, I'm saying there's one reason you suggested about the movement of money. If
Yes.
we keep it aside, forget that.
Forget
There's
that.
a difference of opinion. How much it has to do
It's
with
the printing of money.
printing of
Oh yeah, a lot. Bitcoin's value, yeah, I didn't say it here, but Bitcoin's value will come from the printing of the fiat money. Oh, I forgot to say this, okay? Thank you for bringing this up. You know why? Here's a secret. This is awesome. You know how tall I am? I'm not very tall. I'm like 1 meter, 68 centimeters. Okay, in American, it's like 5 feet 6 inches. I'm not very tall and handsome, okay? But if they shrink the ruler, if they shrink the meter, next year I could be 1.8 meters. How tall is Yao Ming? 2.2. If they keep shrinking the ruler, I could be 2.2 meters in 2 years. Make sense? If you shrink the ruler, if you compress it, like Photoshop, I could be 3 meters tall in 5 years, right? And all of you will be 2 meters and 3 meters tall. Yao Ming will be like 5 meters tall, right? I thought I caught up to Yao Ming, but now he's like 5 meters, right? So my point is, if they keep shrinking the ruler, we all become taller. We're like, oh, we feel so good. I'm like so tall now. But in reality, what happens? It's all the same. It's all the same. Right? In America, we call that bullshit. Okay, so my point is, why does Bitcoin price keep going up? Well, because you measure it in US dollars, and the US dollars is what? Is shrinking. So if you keep printing money and the value of the US dollar keeps shrinking due to inflation, well, of course the price goes up. That's why stocks goes up. That's why real estate prices go up. That's why the price of gold goes up. That's why the price of Bitcoin goes up. So if they keep printing money, the Bitcoin will definitely go to $1 million. I have 100% confidence. What do you think I'm going to say next? That Bitcoin price will go up to $1 million, right? No, that's not even my highest confidence. My highest confidence is I have 100% confidence the US will keep printing the US dollar. Like, would you agree? Okay, put on your microphone so the rest of the people can hear online as well. So if the value of the dollar keeps...
The value of the dollar keeps going. Let's say it even disappears. Well, what's the value of Bitcoin?
It won't disappear. The dollar, if the US if the US government is alive and well, they'll have the US dollar unless they change the system. Unless there's a global reset, they're going to use the US dollar, and the US dollar will keep being printed more and more. Instead of having 20 trillion US dollars, it'll be 100 trillion, 200 trillion, and then you're going to have trillionaires, not just billionaires, but trillionaires. Okay? And they're already talking about companies like Apple and Tesla being worth $2 trillion, $3 trillion. That's crazy. Well, there's too much money around. It's like saying Bobby and Zili is now 3 meters tall. That's crazy. Right? But that's what's going to happen. Mark my words. If you have children, when they grow up, how many of you have children? Any of you children young age, like 5 or 6 years old, 10 years old? When they grow up, when they go to college, when they go to good school, like an EMBA or whatever, they come out, they will have a salary of 1 million US dollars. Yes, they will. Okay, does that make sense? Like, tell me in 15 years. They really will have $1 million salaries in 15 years. Is it because her children are especially smart? Well, yeah, maybe, but they're still going to have $1 million salary, and your children will have $1 million salary because money will be worthless. Today in Wall Street, they're already having $1 million salaries. People, if you go to a top school in the US, you come out, the best job, $300,000, easy. Is that possible? Right? I'm not speaking craziness, am I? Yeah. When I graduated from college, it was $60,000, my first job, $60,000. At the time, it was a lot. Okay, but compared to 20 years ago, it's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Right? People used to make $10,000, $20,000, 10 or 20 only. Okay, so now, anyways, you get my point. So did I answer your question? So they'll just keep printing money. It'll just be worth less and less, right? Anyways, you know my point. Okay, question there.
I got a question. Is about Bitcoin is not the only one digital currency. So
It's not.
Yeah. What's your opinion about the other digital?
What is my opinion? They're
Yeah.
all shit coins.
Why? Because
Okay, Ethereum and Litecoin are okay, but everything else is don't bother. Don't waste your time.
my question is like the Bitcoin is based on the agreement. People believe in that,
Yes.
right? And the technique is not the barrier or something like that.
Correct.
So why there's no possibilities that maybe there's gonna see seed coin or dot coin? or
Dogecoin,
something?
yeah.
That's my question.
It's going to take me 10 years to explain to you. So with my experience the last 10 years, I've come to the conclusion, don't waste your time, don't waste your money. If you're going to invest in Bitcoin. The other two choices are Ethereum and Litecoin. Now, for full disclosure, Litecoin was created by my younger brother. Okay, so whoever here wanted to create another coin, you could. You get lucky, it becomes popular. My brother did that. He's popular. Good for him. But Litecoin is, so Litecoin, for example, my brother created it about 10 years ago. Oh, no, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, 2011. Okay. And he's famous, very famous. Charlie Lee, creator of Litecoin. It's better than Bitcoin because it's faster, smaller, and more convenient. However, what people don't realize is you can be better than Bitcoin in name, in function, in speed, in capacity, in all that stuff. But there's one thing you can never beat Bitcoin. You can never be first. You can never be ahead of him. Does that make sense? And Bitcoin always Bitcoin is ahead of you. And that's why Bitcoin has all the momentum. So Bitcoin has 700 billion market value. The next one is Ethereum, 100 billion. The one after that, Litecoin, 15 billion. So it's a power law. Do you know the power law? The numbers come down a lot. Okay, so it's just, hey, that's just how the world is. Question here. Speaking to so they could record it. In my life, have I ever doubted?
Have you ever doubted the value of Bitcoin or Litecoin or any? So
I'm 46 years old today, turning 46 years old this year, and I've only been in Bitcoin for 10 years. So before that, I had no idea what was, I was not a researcher. I wasn't in this field. But in my last 10 years, I've been a very strong believer in Bitcoin, all of the last 10 years. So I haven't doubted it. Even when the Bitcoin price went like this, I held on, hodl, hold on for your dear life. Okay, question there. Yeah.
Yeah, can you explain a little bit more on the utility? Because you were saying that it was undervalued because it's utility and scarcity.
Yeah.
We understand the scarcity, but utility-wise, how do we use it? Because it has to be backed up by certain, well, maybe not back up, but anyway, you will have to use it to buy something, right?
Okay.
It should be represented.
So let me answer it this way. That's a very good point. Thank you for bringing it up. So it turns out people have a misunderstanding. First of all, Bitcoin, they call it a coin, they call it a digital currency, but don't think of it like that. Think of it more like a digital asset. Think of it more like an investment. The fact that it's true, I cannot take my Bitcoin and go down to Element Fresh and buy dinner. I cannot. China does not allow that. I cannot take my Bitcoin and go to United Airlines, buy an airline ticket. United Airlines does not take Bitcoin. However, there are plenty of other websites and places that do. In Japan, it's very popular. You can pay for things in Bitcoin. In the US, in America, in Europe, you can pay for coffee in Bitcoin. So the point is, don't think of it that you have to pay for it, okay? As long as it has value, you can always sell it for the money and then have the money pay for something. So if you have shares of Tesla stock, what can you do with it? The Tesla stock itself is not a car. The stock is just stock. It's just electronic units on your brokerage account, right? Apple stock, Tesla stock. Well, what's the use of it? Well, the use is you're buying it because it's going to go up in value and you can sell it later. How many of you investors in Apple and Tesla? Anyone? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right? Made a lot of money. Is it useful? Yeah, it's useful. But you don't take it out of your pocket and say, oh, see, there's nothing to show. Okay, so don't make the mistake of it. It's the usefulness of Bitcoin is not because it's backed by anything. The governments won't back it. The usefulness is the system of Bitcoin allows you to transfer value digitally around the whole world with no permission. Okay, a real story. In 2018, I was giving speeches around the world. In the Ukraine, have you been to Ukraine, Kiev? Anyone? They invited me to go speak there. First time. They send me email. We want to invite you, Bobby. You're a great speaker. Come speak at a conference, keynote speech. We'll pay you $50,000. I'm like, yeah, okay. Pay me $50,000. I gave them my bank information, and they try to transfer the US dollar to my bank. And 3 days later, I still didn't get it. 5 days later, I still didn't get it. And I'm like, these Ukrainians, these must be scammers. They're cheating me, right? And what are they thinking? They show me proof. They sent it the wire transfer, $50,000 to my bank account, Bank of America. They're like, oh my gosh, this Bobby Lee, he must be fake. He's cheating me. They're thinking that Bobby Lee is cheating them because I said I didn't get the money. So it turns out, like 2 weeks later, we found out it was a bank error. Like it was just miscommunication. Like for some reason, the Ukrainian government cannot send money to the United States. But the point is, in the end, I solved it. They just sent me Bitcoin. Everything was good. So Bitcoin is great for international payments, international transfer. Okay, for supply chain payments, anything you want. You pay your family, you can anything, pay salary. It's great for everything like that. Okay. All right, question here and then here.
Yeah, just adding to that, like you mentioned, the China has already blocked it, or you can ban it.
Oh.
And if in future, because you are taking the power from the governments, and if a lot of governments blocked it, and getting to your example, so later on it's because Bank of America and banking system, you're able to trace it and get it and done it. But in case of Bitcoin, if this kind of error, because error can be possible, whom we are going to, if you can elaborate more on
this. Yeah, so quickly, first of all, what's the word you used? So first of all, I'm not Bitcoin, okay? So just to clarify, I am not Bitcoin. I'm not Bitcoin, okay? So I'm not the inventor of Bitcoin. I didn't create Bitcoin. I don't own Bitcoin. Bitcoin is its own thing. Now, having said that, just to clarify for everyone, in China today, some of you have concerns. The government has formally declared Bitcoin as a digital asset. It is not recognized as digital currency. It is not recognized as money. However, China very clearly in December of 2013 issued a long statement saying Bitcoin is a legitimate digital asset. And it says people in China, citizens, residents, are free and lawful to own and hold Bitcoin. Okay, so unlike cocaine, marijuana, illegal drugs, where it is not legal, it's not a legal substance. Bitcoin is a legal virtual good. It's a virtual good. Okay, so people can own it. If you're in China, you can own it. You can even trade it, buy, sell, right, amongst your friends. But what they don't allow, the government so far, I ran the very first Bitcoin exchange, so I know this. They don't allow for companies to engage in the business of buying and selling Bitcoin. In China, you need a business license, 营业执照. So the category under 营业执照, there's no category buy, sell Bitcoin. It's not available. And also, they don't allow you to open a platform for exchanging Bitcoin. Exchange license, they don't give that out. So because there's no exchange license, there's no business license. So companies in China cannot engage in the buying and selling of Bitcoin to consumers. Make sense? But consumers can buy, sell to each other. That's why I can sell to you, you can sell to me. Okay? All right, question here.
I have questions about this. And a couple months ago, for the owner of OK platform,
yes,
was detained.
Yes.
Okay? And so at that moment, that platform was stopped for the exchange for the Bitcoins. So I think everybody is, in case that is a digital asset, we also care about the safety for the access. So if in that situation, that is, I think it is bring a lot of scary for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. So she's talking about a case where one executive got detained by the police. He's out of jail now. I think he got detained to assist in a cooperation of an investigation into anti-money laundering into money laundering and also casino gambling activities. So he was a witness to that. They wanted him to testify and give information to that. So it's not about Bitcoin itself. So trust me on this, okay? I know my China laws related to Bitcoin. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know about the China laws for other stuff, but relating to Bitcoin, I can assure you in China, it is legal for any one of us and every one of us to own Bitcoin and to trade it amongst ourselves. Okay, I assure you that, okay? So any other questions about that? Okay, over there. Yeah, one first and then, yeah.
Yeah, I got two questions. So number one, if we trade the Bitcoin now on a personal basis, we have to convert eventually. For example, if I invest it today, by the end of 2021, it reaches $250, $250,000 or even higher, as you just projected. I want to convert it out. Then all this money, all my profits, will still have to go through the banking system, which now it still would be controlled by the central government. This is my first question.
So that's not a question, that's a statement.
So then I would still have the same trouble and inconvenience.
The inconvenience, but where's the inconvenience?
So
it's a money system, right?
Yeah. But it's
that's nothing new to Bitcoin. That's nothing new to Bitcoin. You buy real estate, the real estate prices go up. It's still the money system that's inconvenient, right?
That's still, I would have problem getting my profits.
But that's not Bitcoin. If you buy a home in Shanghai, it's gone up 5 times in the last 10 years. What do you blame? What's the problem? It's not the home's fault. Is it the fault of the home that the value has gone up? You're confusing something here. Okay, the gentleman behind you.
Well, actually, I have.
So actually, let me make one comment. My point is, if Bitcoin prices go up to $250,000, congratulations.
But then still, I couldn't. I couldn't get my money.
Okay, when that happens, you give me the Bitcoin, and we'll call it a day. Right? If you don't want it, I'll take it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If you're like, oh, Bob, I don't want it, I'm going to sell it to you for the same price 5 years ago. Okay, I'll take it.
Actually, I have another question. There was an example at the beginning of this sharing. Seeing this gentleman saying we can create a new currency at the volume bigger than 21 million.
You can.
But now, if we, for example, we reach a consensus with the rest of the world, we create a new currency.
Yeah.
We set the volume at 5 million or 10 million.
Yes, lower limit, yes.
Then how would that happen?
I don't know. You should try it. I did not try it. I don't know. You should try it. But if I had to guess, it's not going to be successful.
Why?
Just my guess. I think it's not going to be successful. Just you're not going to get the people on board. If every one of you agree to use this coin, it's like 50 people. Bitcoin is used by millions. It has a value of 700 billion. Yours, I don't think it's going to be very successful. But no one's going to stop you from trying because it's open source. You can launch it tonight. Okay? All right.
Well, there's another way of acquiring the Bitcoin. It's called mining, right? You know that?
Yeah, mining. Yeah, mining Bitcoin.
So China now become the #1 mining country in the world.
Yes.
So there was a technology evolution in some day in 2013 or 20. I cannot remember the date, but people used to use graphic cards to mine.
Yes, that's right. That's what I did.
New chips. And then later on, probably there will be a quantum technology.
Yes, supercomputers. Yes.
Supercomputers.
What's your question?
Then the value of the existing owner of the Bitcoin will depreciate by the.
Because of what? Because of quantum computers?
Yeah.
Possibly. Okay, let me answer that question about quantum computers. Okay. Some of you may have heard of quantum computers, 量子算法, 是吧? 量子计算器, quantum computing. Okay. Now, it turns out quantum computing is theoretical. It's not available yet. Okay. Not in the mass market. Okay. If it comes out, what's dangerous is it might break cryptography. It might break modern cryptography such that a long password can be guessed easily. Today, a long password cannot be guessed easily. You have to try 1 billion times. Okay. But quantum computing, boom, I know the password. You can guess it. Okay. Now, if that happens, maybe it'll happen in 5 years, maybe it'll happen in 10 years, maybe it'll happen in 20 years. If it happens, it's going to happen gradually. When it does happen, I have bad news for everyone here. even if you don't own any Bitcoin, the world as we know it will change, because everything we use, modern technology, computers, cell phones, SIM cards, passwords, Gmail, everything you use, websites, HTTPS, all of that uses cryptography. All of that will be broken. Taobao, WeChat, WeChat Pay, Alipay, Weidian, all of that will be broken. So if I have a quantum computer, as long as if I can guess your phone number, I can make a phone call from you to your wife, from you to the president, and pretend to be you. And I could go look at your email. I could go log into anyone's email account. I could do anything I want. And not just me, everyone can do everything. The whole society will collapse. So what's going to happen is if quantum computers coming, 5 years before it becomes achievable, the world will upgrade. It'll be like Y2K. They'll upgrade all the software to be quantum proof. Make sense? And if it doesn't happen, then the world will collapse. The digital world will collapse. We have to go back to the old days.
Okay, I get it.
With no internet.
Another practical question. I kind of visit all these trade websites many years ago. It all looks like a fishy website. It still actually
look like what?
Very phishing website.
Very what?
Phishing website.
Fishy, yes, very true. Yeah.
Well, so it comes to me like if I have you trade something, you get a note, right? Proof that you have that. For Bitcoin, you got a hash code or something like that.
Yes.
So after you got this, if the platform you trade has been collapsed, what you can do with the hash code?
Nothing. So that's why you have to bring the Bitcoins out. Don't leave your Bitcoins on the platforms. Okay, when you buy, sell Bitcoin on trading platforms, I'm not going to name any names. Yeah, I see you. Just hold your hand up. I'll ask you a question. Okay, so when you buy and sell Bitcoins on a trading platform, don't leave your Bitcoins on there. Okay, I ran one of the largest trading platforms called BTC China, BTCC. Always withdraw your Bitcoins off into your wallet. So that's why we're going to give you these cold wallets. You can withdraw your Bitcoins onto these cold wallets. Okay? All right, question here.
I just wondering why we don't use the dynamic password, even though the computing speed is very fast. If we use the dynamic password, so we can still adjust to this change, and we also can use the I think the dynamic address with the website.
Okay, your question is too technical. Ask me in person afterwards. Okay, the dynamic password, it's too technical. People are gonna fall asleep. People are already falling asleep. Okay, question here.
Thank you, Bobby. It looks to you that Bitcoin is a revolutionary currency who solves the problem of fiat currency, which are dependent on authorities. Does it look perfect to you?
No. Bitcoin is not perfect. Bitcoin, first of all, I did not create Bitcoin, so I'm not going to take credit. All I'm saying is, what I'm trying to teach you guys is that Bitcoin is an alternative that's available on the world today. Whether it's successful or not depends on the people. If no one chooses to use it, I will still choose to use it. Maybe it's just me and my brother. Okay, but my point is, if you ask me for my opinion, what I think more of the world will start to use it. I think every one of you, since you're here, you're a student, a classmate, or you're student of MBA, CEIBS, Gemba, EMBA, whatever, or you're alumni. My point is all of you, many of you in the next 5, 10, 20 years, either personally or for business, you will choose to use Bitcoin because it's better than the alternative. That's what I found.
Okay, so does it mean that you are confident in the foreseeable future there will be nothing named any alphabet coin to replace the
correct.
position?
In my professional opinion, I will strongly say that I don't think any other coin will replace and overtake Bitcoin. That's my opinion. I don't think it will. Not in the foreseeable future. And it's the same thing. The keyboard here, despite the inefficiencies of the QWERTY layout keyboard, I don't think anything will replace this in terms of the layout. Maybe we'll have voice recognition, maybe we'll have other stuff, but in terms of keyboard layout, I think my children and grandchildren will still see this keyboard in their virtual VR screen. It'll be like QWERTY. Make sense?
I want to build it on a little bit. if we think Bitcoin, no coin can beat it, it seems like there's no flaw to be corrected.
That's not true. You're making the wrong assumption.
Okay, so tell me the correct one.
Oh, who's your idol in life?
Leslie.
Who?
Leslie.
Leslie.
Leslie Chang.
Oh, okay. All right. 張國榮啊，張國榮係嘛 ？Cantonese 張國榮係嘛 ？Same. Okay. So that's great, but he's not flawless. All right. So my point is, I don't care who your idol, who's your favorite company, who's your favorite country, who's your favorite, what is your favorite currency. It's not flawless. Just because the best doesn't have to be flawless. Does that make sense? It's a wrong assumption. Okay. All right. A few more questions. I want to go back to my slides. Yeah.
Regarding the replacement of currency,
louder, please.
I would like to ask a question regarding the Bitcoin forking. So
Bitcoin forking.
Yes. So the hard forking of Bitcoin, and actually there's a warm for Bitcoin community. So what's the result now, and why do you think the original Bitcoin has still have value, and the new Bitcoin is not going to exist in the future, or what?
So your question is very technical. It's a good question, but I think it's gonna confuse people. Basically, the forking in 2017, it happened. It happens because Bitcoin is decentralized. There's no boss, right? So you can fork it. So that's how it is. So I'll take it offline. Why don't you ask me afterwards? I'll address it. Okay. All right. Any more? Question here, and this is the last one. I'll go back to the slides, and you guys ask more questions.
Thank you. My question is, how do I know the Bitcoin that I buy, it's the real one or the fake one?
Great question.
And then also the how, before I transfer my money, and how do I really know there will be a real Bitcoin coming to me?
That's a great question.
Do I pay first or I pay later?
That's a great question. So let me answer this right. The world we live in is a physical world with real people and real companies. Even though Bitcoin claims to be decentralized and trust mathematics and stuff like that, but we live in the digital world. We are not bits on the internet, right? We're human beings. So in this real world, never forget, we always have to trust the people we work with, the people we deal with, and the companies we work with and deal with. That's fundamental. There's no such thing as a trustless relationship. Make sense? If you buy this water, I have to trust the brand of the water. I have to trust the person who sold me the water. There's always trust involved. So when you buy Bitcoin, if you go buy Bitcoin from a company, from a net website, or from a person, you have to have some trust in that person. So that's why you wouldn't. So if someone emails you randomly on an email, you got to say, hey, I want to sell you some Bitcoin. Meet me here or send me money to this account. I'll give you some Bitcoin. Don't trust that. Make sense?
And this trust also to me that I receive the Bitcoin first and then transfer money
Yes,
later.
you could. If you insist on receiving the Bitcoin first, and if they give you the Bitcoin first and then you transfer the money later, then maybe that's a good way to do it. However, no idiot will do that for you. Okay. There's always trust involved. Okay. Like I get these emails all the time. They're like, ooh, they want to sell me Bitcoin. Ooh, they want to buy Bitcoin from me. It's like all these scams, a lot of scams. Okay. So when I told you tonight that you can go out to my colleagues and buy Bitcoin, you may think that's a scam. Hey, you have the right to think that. If you don't trust me and you think they're scammers, that is your right. That is your opinion. That's fine. Does that make sense? You don't know until you do it. Then okay. Yeah. So okay. So a few things. The Coinbase is a name of an exchange in the United States, very reputable. It's going to go public this year. Okay. So Coinbase, I assume you trust Coinbase. Yeah. Okay. So make sure you go to the right Coinbase. If you type in the name wrong, you might go to a fake version. No, it's real. It's happened before where there's a real website and then there's a fake one with one letter that's off. Okay. Like, the Spanish letter for N, it has a thing, what do you call it? Enya. Yeah. they spell Coinbase with the Enya, N, C-O-I, Enya, B-A-S-E.com. It happened. It didn't happen to Coinbase, it happened to Binance, another website, another exchange. If you go to the wrong one, you type in username and password, they log it, and they say, sorry, our website's down or whatever, come back later. And then in the meantime, they log into real Coinbase with your username and they steal all your Bitcoins. It's happened before. So my point is this. My point is if you trust Coinbase, Coinbase will tell you whether the Bitcoin you got is real or not. And then if you trust me, then I tell you my Bitcoin is real. And then you have to get someone else to verify it. Right? You just, in the world we live in, you just have to either trust or verify it yourself if you have the technical capability. Okay? All right. Let me continue and we'll take some more questions later. Okay? All right. So quick, four big mistakes. Okay? Top 4 mistakes. Number 1 is indecisiveness to invest. If some of you want to invest in Bitcoin, you're indecisive. Oh, by the way, some of you leaving early, go get the wallets outside. Okay, get your free wallets outside. Okay, so if you invest early, you're being indecisive. Basically, sorry, let me take a step back. If you've heard of Bitcoin early or heard of Bitcoin for the first time, people make the mistake of not investing early, being indecisive, not sure. Okay, so this is the number one biggest mistake. I learned about Bitcoin in 2011. I didn't really invest it until 2 years later. I should have invested in it on day one. Okay. Number 2 mistake. When you do buy Bitcoin, the mistake is not buying enough. Okay. Everyone makes this mistake. Everyone. I made this mistake. I would sell Bitcoins to my friends, and every time I tell them, I'm like, you're going to make the mistake. You're not buying enough. And they're like, no, this is enough. And then 2 weeks later, 2 months later, they're, oh, Bobby, you're right. I didn't buy enough because it went up so much. Okay. So don't make this mistake. Okay. Number 3 mistake, don't sell after small gain. So unlike stocks where you only go up maybe 10%, 20%, 50%, you're really happy. Don't sell Bitcoin after 10%, 20%. Don't sell Bitcoin after 100%, 200%. What you want is for Bitcoin to go up 10 times, 20 times, 100 times. Okay. Be greedy for that. Lastly, don't sell during a panic crash. When Bitcoin crashes 30%, 50%, don't sell. It's going to feel like the world is on fire. Panic. Don't sell. Remember me. Don't sell. If you're going to sell during a panic crash, don't buy it in the beginning. Okay. All right. I know we're running short on time. When do you sell Bitcoin? This is going to come out as a surprise to some of you. Okay. Don't sell your Bitcoin all at once. Never sell your Bitcoin all at once. You could break it or sell it in small portions. Okay. I have too many CEIBS classmates. They bought Bitcoin. I told them that Bitcoin was 600 RMB 8 years ago. They sold it. They bought it at 800. They missed out on 30%. It went up to 800. They still bought it. It went to 3,000. They sold it all. I'm like, why did you sell it all? They're like, I made 4 times. I'm like, oh, so silly. Anyways, I told them to buy it again. They didn't because it was already at 5,000. Okay. It went from 3,000 to 5,000. They didn't buy that. It's too expensive now. I'm going to wait for it to fall. My other classmate, she was very smart. She said, Bobby, I believe in you. So she took her 1 month salary, 50,000 RMB, bought 10 Bitcoins at $5,000. The other classmate, like, you're so stupid. It already went to 5,000. This is too expensive. She listened to me. She bought at 5,000. 10 Bitcoins. Today, it's 2.5 million RMB. She held it. Okay. So if you sell Bitcoin, wait for at least 5 times increase in price, not 5%, not 50%, 500% increase. And if you sell, only sell maximum 25%. And then you wait 20 times increase. You sell at most 25%. And then you have to wait 100 times increase. Okay. Everyone in this room can see it go up 100 times. At $35,000, if Bitcoin goes to $3.5 million, that's 100 times for you. Okay. Can it go up there? Yes. If they keep printing the US dollar, then yes, it can get there. It won't be worth a lot of money. We'll all be millionaires. Right? So how many of you, like, are there a lot of millionaires in this classroom? Yes, no? But I'll tell you, you're all going to be millionaires. Congratulations. You're all going to be millionaires. I don't care if you buy Bitcoin, don't buy it. You're all going to be millionaires because really in 10 years, it's going to be nothing. Right? In the old days in Chinese, 叫什么万元户是吧? Wanyanhu, in the old days in China, it's like, oh, if you have 10,000 RMB, you're like the richest of families, right? How many Wanyanhu here? How many people have 10,000 RMB? Everyone. Congratulations. You're so rich. You have 10,000 RMB. It's a joke, right? Same thing. If none of you are millionaires, congratulations. You're all going to be millionaires. All of you. Only the billionaires are special. Okay? And that's why I say this, okay? And then lastly, one day Bitcoin might even go to 1,000 times. So you should save some Bitcoin for your children. So at least 25% save it for your children and grandchildren. Okay? So that's my advice. And you guys you want to take a picture? 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right. Future of Bitcoin. Bitcoin will become a global reserve asset class. Okay. So I really believe this. I think it's already on its way. Globally, countries, central banks will look to Bitcoin as a global reserve asset class. It's really the most sound sort of digital asset for the whole world. No one controls it. That's how they like it. Okay. All right, to summarize, Bitcoin is freedom of money. And we talked about the 3 important topics about ownership, about control, and freedom, all related. It's all related to Bitcoin. Okay. If the world wasn't so complicated and so messy, Bitcoin would not be worth anything. The reason Bitcoin is worth something is because it's freedom of money and it's a new kind of ownership that's not controlled by third parties where you truly have freedom of your own money. Okay. Make sense? All right. And then we're going to give out these wallets outside. It's 8:30. I'm going to stay here for as long as you guys have questions. You can ask questions right now, or maybe in 10, 15 minutes, we can go out and let you guys get the wallets. The 8 of you in the front. Ooh, someone left. Oh, good. The 8 of you in the front, based on honor system, go get your wallet. Come to me. I'll give you some free Bitcoins, okay? Some small amounts, okay? Not a lot, but it'll be fun.